Now, though, we're talking legal news and Andrew Eborn's greatest writs, and he joins me now. Andrew, good evening.
Always a delight to join the Queen of the Night.
Oh, well, thank you very much indeed. I don't have much competition, to be fair, but there you go. AI is really becoming a thorn in people's sides, as we suspected it would. Growing legal troubles over copyright and defamation.
Yes, absolutely. So this is the big thing that is always hitting the news virtually every day about artificial intelligence. And there's two sides to it. Is the way that it gets the data, and that's the inside, and then what happens to the data when it comes out again, churned out by these machines. And every single day there's sort of problems about basically the internet being scraped and various copyright works being used. And what's happening is people are sort of calling for greater regulations to have a look at that sort of side. And a number of organizations, including some of the various photo libraries, have said, well, let's set up some sort of economic recompense for the various copyright owners. And Shutterstock, for example, they've set up a new system. I was with them at the AI Tech Conference fairly recently here in London, and they demonstrated it to me. And I said to them, well, look, this is fantastic. They can monitor what sort of works go into the machine and how they get churned out and which copyright works are involved. But the difficulty is this, Petri, is you then need to work out the economics of it. Because if they've got a database of several million photos and you're only getting a few quid each time you license the AI-produced photo, the way that it's divvied up is not very, very good, is it?
No, it's not. But it also seems to be that the person who owns the copyright has got to do all the work.
Well, and that's the problem as well, isn't it? Because it's whilst they're licensing their work, you need to make sure there's fair sort of recompense for everybody. And you'll recall last time I was with you, we talked about the Hollywood actors' strike. And it's the same sort of thing there about licensing their images and so on and so forth. And one of the biggest concerns in Hollywood, it's the first strike of both the writers and also the actors since 1960. And one of their big concerns is about AI and how AIs can effectively scrape all the images, the voice and so on and so forth, and then reproduce you in endless films for eternity.
Yeah.
And what the current proposal is...
Yeah.
And, well, they pay for one day's work, is what they're saying. So that's got to be the thing. I'm a big advocate of understanding, as you know, I speak around the world and on these sort of things, a big advocate for what is possible with the technology. And it is tremendous opportunities. But what we need to look at are the sort of fair recompense for the people involved. And taking the artist Grimes, I'm sure you've got all of her records. She will turn around. I think you never miss a track, I know.
No,
what she basically says is, look, okay, I like the fact that people can use my works and we'll collaborate and we'll own the resultant AI work 50-50. And I do think there's a sort of mechanism that can be put in place. And that's what the industry needs to get to have a look at that. The other side is obviously the defamation laws. And I've spoken previously about these hallucinations and ChatGPT, and I would recommend that everybody tries it. What happens is where it doesn't know the answer, rather similar to a politician, it will turn around and hallucinate. In other words, it will turn around and make it up. And we've had a couple of situations. There was a US law professor who was falsely accused of sexually harassing students. And there was also an Australian mayor who was falsely accused of being imprisoned for bribery. And the first ChatGPT defamation lawsuit has actually just been issued about last month from a radio host, a Georgia radio host, Mark Walters. And he's claimed in his lawsuit that ChatGPT produced the text of a legal complaint that accused him of embezzling money from gun rights group, which was entirely false. So he's
who does he sue? Who does he sue?
He's going to sue, in this instance, he's suing the artificial intelligence company, which is OpenAI LLC. So this is going to be a very interesting case about to what extent are they liable for what is generated and so on and so forth. But it's incredibly dangerous. It needs to be refined. Dealing with these hallucinations is vitally important. So it does come up with the most extraordinary things. I think I mentioned last time about a legal case where a particular lawyer had a case for negligence, and he was representing a client who was hit by one of these trolleys on an airline, and he looked at all the different sort of legal cases. He asked ChatGPT to come up with some cases. They came up with 3 different ones, and he very confidently appeared in front of the judge and quoted these 3 cases. And the judge looked at him and said, hang about, all of these are made up. They're not real cases at all. And the relevant lawyers basically had their knuckles racked as a result of it. So whilst ChatGPT, another AI, is an incredibly powerful tool, it does have limitations, and I would still urge everybody to question everything.
Yeah, always. Donald Trump tried to question CNN.
Well, it's extraordinary. Everybody's favourite poster boy for getting out there on that sort of basis. So what has happened is a federal judge has thrown out Donald's $475 million claim defamation lawsuit against CNN for allegedly likening him to Adolf Hitler. And what this basically involved was the US cable network described Mr. Trump's claim that the 2020 presidential election had been stolen from him as the big lie, in inverted commas. And he argued that the phrase referred to a Nazi propaganda campaign used to justify the persecution of Jews. Horrendous in that sort of side. What the district judge, a judge called Rag Singhal, ruled is that CNN's comments were not defamatory, and therefore basically Mr. Trump could not proceed, President Trump could not proceed with his defamation case. But it's obviously not the only case he's got. I mean, Trump, as you know, it's been estimated he's had about 4,000, can you believe, 4,000 lawsuits throughout his business and political career. And since he left the White House, he's continued to face a cloud of lawsuits and criminal investigations, which may or may not frustrate his presidency attempt in 2024.
Right, no, the more the MAGA crowd just think there's a conspiracy against him. So the more lawsuits there are, the more they think he's justified in suing everybody. And even though, it's a conspiracy that they won't accept, that the judges have ruled this out.
What he does, and he's incredibly clever at working the media and building up his fans, and say, if you tell everybody this is what's going to happen, and then it happens, they're all going to say, my goodness, he's right. Yeah. This is the conspiracy.
I know he's been very clever. The whole fake news thing, all down to him as well. Let's look on YouTube now. YouTube creators copyright issues.
Yes.
What's happened here?
Well, what's happened here? Guinness World Records, the wonderful Guinness World Records. I remember them from the good old days of Roy Castle and Ross McWhirter. And everybody wanted to have a record. And I did some of their very early digital distributions for them. What's happened is a lot of people have been saying, world record this and world record that. And certain YouTubers have been using the Guinness World Record logo. And basically what they're saying is that we're a world record at doing whatever it happens to be. And Guinness World Records say, well, hang about. Firstly, you can't use our logo. And secondly, it's not true. And therefore, we're going to give you what's called a copyright strike notice to take it down. And that's exactly what's happened. So be very careful what you claim on the internet. Be very careful in terms of what intellectual property you use. If you use somebody's copyright or you use a particular logo, you could find yourself at the end of one of these takedown notices.
Let's have a look at Royal Mail. This can't be legal. If you've paid legally for a stamp and it's legal tender, right? We can't use them anymore, though, if they haven't got a barcode. That seems to be wrong.
Today's the last day. Sadly, today's already finished. It was almost yesterday. So what happens? Royal Mail, it's the final day for people. And you may not have known this, so people might be surprised, for people to use non-barcoded stamps. So all these old stamps that you've got, basically your time's now run out. And with effect from today, you have to have these barcode stamps so they can track where it is and so on and so forth, which does seem extraordinary. So I don't know about you, but I've got lots of these old stamps lying around. And effectively what we need to do is there's a leaflet from the Royal Mail. It's also available. Do check it out online for what they call the swap out scheme. And so you're going to have to swap your old ones for new ones. And actually what's happened is this deadline was extended from the 31st of January this year as more time was required for users. I don't know about you, Petri, but I as I say, I've got the hundreds of these stamps.
Yeah, I don't think I knew much about this.
No, I think that's the sort of principle, isn't it? And I'm sure a lot of your wonderful audience are in the same position. But they're basically, you can no longer use those stamps unless you've got a barcode.
That
And
seems wrong. That seems
worse
just
than
entirely
that,
wrong.
it's terrible. If people start receiving letters which haven't got these barcodes, Royal Mail has said that a £1.10p surcharge fee will be applied to mail sent using non-barcoded stamps. And I think
well,
that we need to tell people about that.
I don't use snail mail much anyway, so and any letter that comes to me via snail mail I don't want, so it's fine.
Well, there you go. So
I won't sign for it. Yeah, forget it. They can have it.
So those wonderful letters I write to you, it's got to be good. I'm just getting them returned to me.
Yeah, just get them. They'll just go back to you. Don't worry about it. Sadiq Khan has won a High Court Ulez battle. Most of us really upset about this in London. This is for the Greater London expansion. And he's saying that this is some kind of endorsement on his policy. And that's not what this is it?
No, it's not what happened.
He's
basically,
calling it a revelation that the judge has agreed with him. And it's absolutely not what the judge said.
Not at all. And Mr. Justice Swift, basically on Friday, he rejected a bid from 5 Tory councils to have the proposed expansion, the Ulez expansion, basically ruled unlawful. And the judge basically said, well, yes, according to the law, you can do this. Sadiq has said it's going to go ahead on August the 29th. But a lot of people are turning round, Petri, as you know, and saying, hang about, this could be a real boost for the Conservatives, because they could be turning around and saying, look, on this sort of basis, we're for cars, we're against Ulez, and this could be a real vote winner. So I don't know anybody yet, and maybe in your good audience who will turn around and say, we love Ulez, let's pay more money.
It's another tax on the poor. The rich people are just not bothered about this at all. It's disgusting, and it is even more disgusting for a Labour mayor, and I suspect it might cost him his position, I would hope, anyway. Andy, I don't think he can win next time. Not sure.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? But certainly, I think it's a boost for the Conservatives. And there's a wonderful cartoon in the Standard, which has got a picture of Rishi on an oil rig with the slogan "Just Start Oil." Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah, he's trying to create a difference, isn't he, by saying, "Yeah, we're going to go ahead with all of this." And David Davis has said we need the right to a proper bank account in law, and this is after Nigel Farage was biffed out of Coutts because they didn't like his politics. They lied, first of all, and said it was because he didn't have enough money. Then they said it was because they found he got all the freedom of information stuff, and he found that actually they were against his policies, principles and ideals, which many people might be. But I've been reading today that lots of sex workers and people like that have also had their bank accounts cancelled by other banks. So this is going on way more than we thought, and we need to thank Nigel Farage for bringing it to our attention.
Absolutely. And we spoke about this a number of weeks ago, actually, when it first came to light that Nigel had problems with his bank accounts. It also turned out that a man of the cloth had his bank account shut down because he basically disagreed on some particular issues that a building society was taking. And it's a real concern, because without a bank account, effectively, you cannot operate in any way. No. You can't get your salary paid in. You can't buy things. You stop really being a real person. And what's happened is it seems as though it's not just Nigel Farage who's had these problems. There are apparently tens of thousands, certainly thousands of people who've had similar sort of things. And so we need to look at that. But it needs to be a fundamental right to have a bank account. And we do have a right to have a bank account because obviously that needs to do that. But we need to make sure it's enshrined in law that you cannot just close people's bank accounts because you disagree with their political views.
I mean, that's extraordinary. That has to be wrong, that a bank, with the moral judgment, most of them, of a snail, in how they carry out their businesses, they're no arbiters of morality, are they? I mean, just look at what they do.
Well, I think you're doing a disservice to snails, quite frankly.
And how dare they judge the rest of us? No, we bailed them out. We had to bail them out because of their, moral ineptitude.
And what's extraordinary, if you look at what's happened to the share price of NatWest as a result of this whole sort of backfiring thing, and part of the internal documents that came to light saying that it was protect their reputation. Well, the reputational damage as a result of this has been quite extraordinary. So absolutely, across all political parties, it shouldn't be a political issue. It should be the banks are there to look. It's our money at the end of the day,
yes.
And they then lend our money to other people to make more money themselves. I've got no problem with that, but they cannot cannot close down bank accounts just because of political views or religious views or anything else. If there's a criminal element, then absolutely you need those sort of safeguards in place. But otherwise, we have to have bank accounts. And it was again raised, and this is going to keep roaring as an issue until it's sorted. But David Davis has said today that we need a right to a proper bank account in law, and he will act to help ensure we get one. So let's have a look at that sort of side.
Yeah, well, let's make sure he actually does his job, shall we? That'd be good. Andrew, thank you very much indeed. Andrew Eborn there, Futurist barrister and broadcaster, bringing us up to date with all the legal stuff that's been going on. We're going to be talking sport in just a moment.